Welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to continue with our mortgage amortization table. When we left off last, we had a principal of 180,000. We had an interest rate of 3.128% because that is what the current rate was as of, I think, Thursday or Friday of last week. 30-year mortgage is what we were getting out, and our monthly payment ended up being $771.37. I added a couple of new cells in here that I'm going to have you add. We're going to put in cell D2, total interest paid, and E2 will be total principal paid. And then F2 will be the total that we end up spending in 30 years between the amount of money we have to pay back. We have to pay back $180,000 in principal. But because we're at this interest rate for 30 years, we're also paying back interest to the bank for letting them loan us that money. Add those two together, and it's how much you end up spending on the house in 30 years. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we have these two numbers. We have them at the bottom of column D and at the bottom of column E, which is great. But it also would be helpful just to have it up here as well so that when we change numbers over here, we can totally see what it's doing to both our interest and the total amount of money that we spend in 30 years. So what I'm going to do is click on cell D3 and I'm going to say equals. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of my amortization table. And this is the cell I want, cell D369. I'm going to click on cell D369, where it's the $97,693 in interest. Hit enter, and it should pop up in there. So if this was cell D369, this is going to be equal cell E369. And you can always, if you know the cell address, you can just type it in. Okay, so we will be paying back after 30 years. The bank would have made $97,693.08 on us in interest. We would finally pay back the principal of 180,000. So 30 years, what that means is it's the interest plus the principal. So cell D3 plus cell E3. That means that house actually cost you $277,693.08. That's what interest rates do for you. Now watch, just watch, do not change anything. Just watch my spreadsheet. If you can't lock in at that rate, let's say you lock in at an interest rate of 4.5%, because either the interest rates have gone up, your credit might be that great, you might be a first-time home buyer and they're taking a chance on you. So more than likely you're not going to get the lowest interest rate. Well, let's say your interest rate is 0.045. Watch what happens to the amount of interest that you pay. Goes from 97,000 to 148,000. That's how important this number is. That's why it's important to shop around and find the lowest interest rates and go with that lending institution. And not only does your interest go up, but then your monthly payment also goes up. So from $771 to $912, about $150 difference per month for 30 years. So that's huge. So this interest rate is big when it comes time for shopping for houses. You want to find the lowest one possible. So let me go back to our 0.03128 interest rate. And last March, they were down to 2.4%, I think. Watch what happens. Oh, whoops, I did something. I put it in the wrong spot. Sorry. Don't freak out, everybody. There we go. Last March, I think it was around let's go with 0.25%. Watch what happens to your interest rate and your monthly payment. For that, interest goes down to 76,000 and your monthly payment goes down to $711. Interest rates, huge. That's why everybody keeps their eye on them. Everybody's concerned about them. Nobody likes to see the interest rates go up when it comes to loans. Okay, next up, we're going to fill in an equity column. And I highlighted this in yellow because it's not going to represent true equity. We don't know what the equity is going to be in your house because we can't look into the future and say, what is the economy going to do and what is your house going to be worth? We know as the years go by, that house is going to be worth more than 180,000 just because of time passing, just because of appreciation that we talked about last week. So For argument's sake, when we figure out the equity, what we're just going to do in this column is we're just going to pretend that the house remains at a value of $180,000 for the straight 30 years because you're still going to see the effect of equity. You're going to see the effect of the value of the house and the amount of money that you owe the bank. So for my equity equation, I'm going to do equals. I'm going to type in 180,000, meaning that the value of my house is going to stay that. And I'm going to subtract what I owe the bank at the end of each month. So the 3/15/2021, I owe what's in cell F9. So it's going to be $180,000 minus F9. Hit enter. Yes, I want to do the autofill. Okay, so what this means is if the house remained at a value of 180,000, which we know it won't, it'll go up. But after the first month, I'll have $302 in equity. I'm going to highlight the rest of this and fill it in yellow. Let me just scroll down to the bottom. And as you notice, that number just keeps going up for every month because every month you're knocking more off the principal. So therefore you have more in equity. Now imagine if the house now becomes worth $220,000, 15 years in, you have even more equity because it would be 220 minus what you owe on the house at that time. So this is why homes are known as being good investments. As long as you keep the upkeep on it. Let me just make this yellow. And I don't need this 180 right here. I'm going to delete it. And of course, at the end, I should have complete equity, $180,000. So again, if you want to look, let's go with March 15th. There you go, March 15th, 2041. You bought the house in 2021. Sorry, March. Let's go to March. For 180,000. That's 20 years later. You would have $101,000 in equity. You sold the house, you get $101,000, which you then more than likely will use as your down payment for your next house. Now imagine in 20 years that house is going to be worth more than 180,000, so you're going to have even more than that in equity on that house. Nice way to make 100 grand in 20 years. I don't know other investments that could do that. Maybe the stock market if you're good at it. Okay, what we're going to do next is you were also given a table in Google Classroom, which 3 scenarios in it, scenario 1, 2, and 3. So go ahead and open it up. It's called Questions for the Amortization Table. And what we're going to do is copy these questions. I don't want to go all the way over there. Hold on. Let me unmerge the cell so it doesn't go so far. And I think the rest are fixed. Yeah. Okay, so I just want to go from cell B3 through D27. We're going to just copy and we're going to go back to our table and we're going to paste them into cell. Let's go with cell I9. Paste them in there. And you can adjust your columns if you want to so that you can see the questions and see the table. So we have 3 different scenarios. The first scenario is the one that we currently, our amortization table is currently showing. $180,000 house with a 30-year mortgage at 3.128%. And we're going to go through and answer these 9 questions based on this situation. Then we're going to go to scenario 2, which keeps the principal and the time the same, but it changes the rate. And scenario 3 does the same thing, keeps the principal and time the same, but changes the rate. We're going to scroll through the different tables and pull the information out that answers the question. Okay, so first question, what is the monthly payment? For this scenario, the monthly payment is $771.37. All right, to answer these questions, we can't just do equals and click on the answer like we normally do because we are going to be changing these values, which will then be changing the table, which then our reference will be changing. So we're going to actually have to type in the numbers. So I'm going to shorten up cell I so that I can see cell K. And for what is the monthly payment, I'm going to type in 771.37. Make it money if you want. And if you want to shorten up that column, you can shorten that up too so you can see a little bit more of everything. Okay, next question. After 30 years, how much is paid in interest on this loan? Right there. $97,693. So we figured that out already too. 97,693.08. Highlight this whole row and make it money so I don't have to keep hitting the money symbol. Let's make it money. There we go. Okay, next question. After 30 years, how much is actually paid for a $180,000 house mortgaged at 3.128% interest? This is what you actually end up paying back. 277,693. 277,693.08. You borrowed 180, but in the end, you paid $277,000 for that house. On which date do you finally have more money going towards the principal than towards the interest? Okay, that's these two columns because this is your monthly check you make out every month, but each month a little bit less is going towards the interest and a little bit more is going towards the principal. This is the better column to be in. You want to have more going towards your principal. So the question is if you have a 30-year loan, at what point does the number in column E get bigger than the column in column D? So we're going to have to scroll down and check the date because we want to know on which date that happens. Okay, so let's hit it. And what you're doing is every so often you're checking. So right now I'm checking here, not bigger yet. I want column E bigger than column D. All right, it's happening in this section here. Looks like this is the date. Right, on January 15th, 2029, 385.95 goes towards the principal, while 385.42 goes towards the interest. Just slightly different. So we're going to go put in the date 1/15/2029. That's when it happens. So let's scroll up here. 1/15/2029, which means it's just shy. Let's see, we started in 21. That means it takes almost 8 years before you finally start having more money attacking the principal than the interest. Okay, how much do you owe on March 1st, 2030? So this column here, column F, remember, is what we owe. But March 1st, 2030. Okay, so let's go to the 2030s. Here's our 2030s. Okay, this is March 15th. So before the 15th, this is what I owed, right? So it's basically March 1st is what you owed at the end of February. So I owe 142, 365.13 was what I'm starting with over here. So my answer is going to be $142,365.13. That's what I owe on March 1st. So let's go up and put that number in here. 142, 365.13. That's what I owe on March 1st. How much do I owe on March 31st, 2030? So again, that's after one monthly payment's been paid. So back to the 2030, March 31st. Now it's this number over here. It's the 141,964.86 because this check is being made out on the 15th, right in the middle of the month. So by the end of the month, I owe less than I did at the beginning of the month. Let's go put that one in. So that answer was 141,964. I think it was 86. Go check that. Yep, 86. Okay, next question. How much of your monthly payment is going towards the interest on 12/15/2025? The amount going towards interest, the part towards interest is what's in column D. So we got to go to 1215 and look at what number is in column D. So 1215, 2025. 2025. Here's 1215. The number in column D, $420.86 is going towards interest. $400, $420.86 towards interest. How much of the monthly payment is going towards the principal on 5/15/2040? Okay, remember the principal part towards principal is column E. So we have to go to 5/15/2040 and look at the number in column E. Here's our 2040s. Here's 5/15/2040. Column E, we have $549.90 going towards the principal. $549.90. If the value of the house remains the same, how much equity is in the house on 5/15/2040? So same date. Now we want to know the equity. Now that would only be if the house was still worth 180,000. As I was saying before, it's going to be worth more than that. But for this argument's sake, we're going to pretend it's the same. So on 5/15/2040, we have this lovely number. You're going to have $95,588.28 in equity. It's almost 20 years later. And you can use that money. Like I said, you could sell the house and then use it as a down payment. You could take a home equity loan out against it and maybe redo your kitchen, pay for your children's college education, buy a car, all sorts of things you can do with that equity. And 95,588.28 in almost 20 years. That's nice. Okay, so we finished this scenario. So now scenarios 2 and 3 you're going to do. I'm going to get you started on scenario 2, and then you'll do scenario 3 on your own. All it has us doing is changing the interest rate. So scenario 2, still the $180,000 house, but now the interest rate is going up to 4.5%. So just come up to our little table here and change the 0.03128, change it to be 0.045. And now you're going to answer these questions based on this. So now my monthly payment now is $912.03. So I'm going to put in 912.03. After 30 years, how much is paid in interest on this loan? The amount paid in interest is $148,332.08. You could buy another house for that amount of money. You could purchase a home. After 30 years, how much equity is paid for $180,000? What is it? After 30 years, how much is actually paid for? Sorry, I said the word equity. That's what threw me. Actually paid for. What you actually paid for it is this number right here. So you're going to put in the 328, 332.08. On which date do you finally have more money going towards the principal than towards the interest? Okay, these 4 and 5 I'm going to leave for you to do on your own, as well as scenario 3, where you're going to change the interest rate to be 0.025 and answer these same questions. But remember, for this one, you have to compare the numbers in columns D and E. Once E gets bigger than D, that's the date that we're looking for. Okay, if you have any questions, sign into our Google Meet, and I can chat with you then. Have a great day. Tomorrow we will continue with our amortization table.